Always so fresh, delicious, and nutritious, Eggland's Best Eggs fuel the body with 6 times more vitamin D, 10 times more vitamin E, and 25% less saturated fat compared to ordinary eggs. Visit egglandsbest.com to learn more.
'Tis the season of gifting and halls to deck, and the Who's in Who Newville were in love with new tech. Where can we find Sonos and Samsung and Nintendo, they shouted. Would they find it in one place? This they questioned and doubted. When suddenly a Who yelled, Walmart's the place to start! And each Who added headphones, TVs, and games to their carts. With Walmart, their shopping was done in a flurry. They cried out, Who knew? And ordered their gifts in a hurry. Shop the latest tech gifts in the Walmart app.
You can support this podcast at patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia.
I'm Rebecca Lavoie, and this is Crime Writers On. Crime Writers On is the original true crime review podcast that digs into true crime, pop culture, other podcasts. And on this episode, he was one of Nashville's most colorful figures with a raucous nightclub to match. But is the right man in prison for the death of David Skull Schulman? We'll review Season 2 of the Tennessean podcast, Murder on Music Row, The Skull at the End of the Rainbow. Joining me to get that done and more is true crime author, TV journalist, and host of These Are Their Stories. That's a podcast, by the way, about law and order and SVU. My husband and the love of my life, Kevin Flynn. Hello, Kevin.
Hello, Rebecca. Also
with us, private investigator, certified pet detective, resident cat lady, and author, Laura Bricker. Hi, Laura.
Hey, Rebecca.
And finally, our resident Doubting Thomas, author of the City Trilogy of novels, host of Rip Current, which is coming out with a brand new season that you should check out. More Like Ancient Aliens and Strange Arrivals, which of course is soon to be a major motion picture with Coleman Domingo and Demi Moore. Toby Ball. Hello, Toby.
Hey, Rebecca.
Toby, it must feel good to have all of those like major motion picture things happening.
All those major motion pictures,
right?
yeah.
It's so fancy.
It is very fancy. Yeah. I'll be really psyched when it actually hits the screen.
Yeah.
There's obstacle after obstacle, it seems.
Right. And you know, I mean, the way that the market is, this could also wind up on HBO or Netflix. Or it could be in theaters or whatever. And hopefully if it does come into theaters, it'll make it there in Spain.
Yes.
But that you'll be able to come here to the U.S. so that we could have fun at a big premiere.
They have premieres for streaming movies, too. We can go to one of those.
Yeah, sure. They put them in art houses so that they qualify for Academy Awards.
We could do that thing where you can like watch a movie at the same time as your friend if it's streaming on a certain service.
Do a watch party.
We could do a watch party.
We can have a watch party.
We could go to the Ioka, and then we could go to the Swingers Club afterwards.
Oh.
It's not there anymore.
Oh, you mean the Ioka or the Swingers Club?
Such a great idea. Oh, well.
For those who don't know, a million years ago, there was a movie theater in Quaint AF, Exeter, New Hampshire, and apparently in the basement, the open secret was that there was a Swingers Club there.
Yeah.
And Laura knows all about it.
Because she joined.
Yeah. Club Sins, S-I-N-Z.
S-I-N-Z. That's classy.
Club Sins.
That is classy.
That makes it fancy. So, Kevin.
Yeah.
If you were announcing me for the show, would I have anything fancy before my name, like maybe television personality?
If I had to announce you?
Yes.
You mean like I do on These Are Their Stories?
Yes. You don't call me television personality.
I don't.
Which I am now.
Is Court TV actually television? I know it has TV in its name, but
some people get it on their TVs. We don't.
Yeah, I mean, you get Tubi on
I've been
your
on almost
TV
10
too, right?
times.
Wow.
Does that count as TV personality?
Well, when you get paid for it, let me know.
I don't get paid for it.
Wow.
All right, so Kevin, this is Thursday's program.
It is.
What's coming up on Monday's show?
Yeah, Monday we're going to talk about the new true crime podcast, The Chinatown Sting.
What's that?
It's a new podcast called The Chinatown Sting.
Oh. Should we talk about the thing that we're going to be talking about on this podcast? It's yet another podcast.
I would love to talk about that.
All right, leading off.
The people who cheer on this Friday night for Diane Sherrill and her rendition of Life as a Cabaret may or may not know they are sitting in what was once a crime scene.
For decades, David Skull Schulman ran the Rainbow Room in Nashville, a club known for its edgy mix of country music, burlesque shows, and other illicit activity. But the city was shocked in 1998 when the colorful 81-year-old local icon was murdered in his empty nightclub, his French poodle the only witness to the crime.
Anytime David had an altercation, especially with someone just like off the street, it was either where somebody wanted to try to get some of his money, like a snatch and grab, or it was somebody trying to come in without paying. something like that.
Authorities suspected someone was after the wad of cash Skull always kept in the bib of his Hee Haw overalls. Despite questionable witness statements and no evidence connecting him to the scene, prosecutors convicted a 17-year-old for the crime. All this time later, the question remains, is the right man in prison for killing Skull Schulman?
We're going to tell you about a prisoner serving a life sentence after his conviction who insists he never set foot inside Skull's Rainbow Room, and there was no physical evidence to suggest he ever had. And about his chances to walk free some 27 years later.
In Season 2 of Murder on Music Row, The Skull at the End of the Rainbow, Keith, Sharon, and Kirsten Fiscus of the Tennessean reopen the famous case, pulling apart the original investigation and looking for new evidence. It also takes a deep dive into the stories of the famous and infamous characters who frequented the Rainbow Room and the eccentric club owner's place in Nashville history. Spoiler alert, we're going to be talking about plot points from Murder on Music Row Season 2. So if you want to remain spoiler-free, go to the estimated time code in our show notes for our thumbs up or thumbs down reviews. And Kevin, should we also give a disclaimer that we know Keith Sharon a little bit? He's been on the deep dive, for instance. That has not influenced our review at all, I promise. And let's get into it. So, Laura, this isn't just one thing, right? This podcast, in many ways, I think feels like a book. But it's not just about this murder, right?
Right. Yeah, I think that this is really could be two distinct podcasts. You have a lot of the history of Nashville and the country music scene and different personalities that were involved at different times. It's a little bit like when Leon Neyfakh takes this one, okay, this is what was happening during this time in history. It did feel like a book to me. I think it actually felt more like kind of a true crime history book in the way that it was delivered, just because of the level of detail that was given about all of these different people, right out to the outlaw country, which, by the way, is near and dear to my childhood because Waylon Jennings and Willie Nelson used to always be on the radio at my parents.
Oh, really? When you guys were auctioning off horses?
Yeah, before that. That was before the auctioning off horses was Willie. And one of my friends, Todd, who's a musician now, he plays a lot of that outlaw country music. So I was like, oh, I know about that point in history as well.
Yeah. So, Toby, I mentioned that this feels like a book. I say that because in addition to listening, I also read transcripts of the episodes, and they literally read like a book. It does not read like an audio podcast at all. Do you like that kind of writing for audio?
So, I mean, I've got kind of mixed feelings about it, to be honest. I think the writing's really good. And I think what Keith does, and I mean, I think he and I have got similar aesthetics that we like about sort of the noir feel about things. And I know that that's kind of what he's shooting for. It has a lot of elements that I really like. I think the issue for me is that it comes off as being very dense. Mm-hmm. Like you really, really have to focus on what's going on, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, like having to focus, but I mean, it's a lot of information coming at you very quickly. I think it's told engagingly. I like Keith's narration, but it's an hour of pretty focused, pretty constant stuff coming your way. So that I guess that's my big issue with it, because I found the actual content very interesting, but it is just this like huge block of just talking and conveying information that I think sort of the place where I was sort of physically and mentally while I was listening to it, there were times when I was just like, wait, what just happened? You know, it's just like you really, really have to be focused.
Yeah, I agree, guys. This also feels like an audiobook to me. And I think if you go into it sort of thinking that, you know, this is more an enhanced version of that, then I think you'll find it fine because, like you say, the content is really good. What I kind of pick up here is I think that what I hear is a difference between somebody like me that grew up in the industry writing for broadcast versus someone who has come up writing for print. As you think about how these things will sound out loud, and you can hear the amount of commas in each sentence before you get to a period, which is great for the page, but not so much when you're reading out loud. And I think that this will dovetail into sort of like later on I talk about my concerns about the production value here, that you're right, it's very dense. These are like hour-long episodes, 8 of them, and you get into a lot of stuff. Some of it I really like. Sometimes it goes on for too long. Sometimes I'm wondering, like, why is this necessary or not? But as far as the writing, I mean, he's an excellent writer, and he's got some really great turns of phrases at different times.
His jackets were wild with color, rhinestones, and high collars. On days he knew cameras would be around, Skull wore white leather shoes. He wore a giant belt buckle in the shape of a skull. He told people it would keep the evil spirits away. It didn't.
Sometimes his asides are really good, and, it is interesting to find out, what his favorite Bob Dylan song is. And by the time we get to an aside about Paul McCartney visiting a farm, it's kind of like, I wonder if we've gone too deep into this for a podcast, as opposed to how you can focus and stay mentally organized when you're looking at it on page.
So I went and looked at the Tennessean series on this, and I was very surprised to see that all of the articles were also incredibly long. It was almost like Keith wrote 2 books, and one of them became the podcast, and the other one became this series of articles. So my issue with the storytelling style is related to a complaint that me and Kevin and all my family make when talking to my mother, which is that she cannot tell you a story about anything without telling you the backstory of every single person in the story. So she'll say, oh gosh, at the grocery store today, I ran into Jill. You remember Jill. Her daughter was the one that went to medical school and then had the son that had all those health issues. Remember? We met them back in Kansas when we were doing it. It'll be like a 45-minute aside about the third character. And I didn't even know who Jill was. And it doesn't matter because the story is actually about them buying something on sale or something.
And Rebecca is not like that at all.
I am like that.
Yeah, I know you're like
but
that.
I also know how to spin a yarn. And this podcast, literally, you cannot meet a person, go to a place, hear the name of a location, or have anything without doing a deep dive into that thing. Literally. It became almost funny to me in the second episode. The episodes are incredibly long. And they are not just dense. They're dense with many, many, many things that I think Keith thinks are very interesting, and that somebody who's interested in Nashville history would think is very interesting. I found it to be incredibly difficult to get through this material because it was all deep dive asides, all of it.
In March 1970, Heaven Lee was headlining a show in Utica, New York, which is upstate, cold, and close to Canada. It's so close to Canada that Utica was the site of a curling tournament in which 32 teams from around the world competed for the Air Canada Silver Broom.
I finished this podcast and I'm I still don't know anything. I don't feel like I understand the investigation part at all because it was so buried. What about you, Laura?
Yeah. So when I was saying before, there's 2 podcasts here. It's there's the history and then there's the crime. I really thought the crime itself was really interesting, but we would start to gain momentum on learning about the investigation and then learning about the crime. And then that particular part of the story would get waylaid by some fact about history related to something or somebody that was connected. And I would be like, oh, how is this going to be connected to the crime? And it wasn't necessarily connected to the crime. It was connected to something nearby. So I really wanted more focus on the investigation, the Innocence Project's potential involvement in it. And that's me. That's my, but as I was listening to it, I was thinking, okay, people in Nashville are going to love this because it's got so much Nashville history. And I think there's a certain type of person that wanted to hear that information. Me, I'm just tell me about the murder. And I liked when we got to hear from Kirsten later. And she was the one who was out talking to the Innocence Project people and talking to the judge. And you got to hear some of her narration. And I thought that was a good way to kind of break up the length by having a different narrator step in a little bit more.
James Cavey has never publicly claimed any role, unless you count the testimony of jailhouse informants, in the heinous acts that led to Skull's death. Not in statements to police, not in any testimony, and not to any family or friends.
Yeah, I thought it was weird the way they handled Kirsten, because they introduce her as a co-host, but we don't hear anything from her.
A co-reporter, yeah.
A co-reporter. And then in a couple early episodes, this voice drops in, and you're like, who the hell was that? And so I don't think she was served very well. And you're right, she does make more of an appearance later on. In the later episodes, we hear much more from her. And I really think that perhaps if Keith had broken this up with more of a second host with Kirsten, that it would have really served these very long passages where it's 5 to 6 minutes of just talking with no sound bites, with no musical interstitial anything. It would have, it might have interrupted some of the flow for these parenthetical stories. But I think that as far as the listenability, I think it would have helped. And it certainly would have served the co-host better, because by the time we're getting to the end is sort of like when we're introduced to her, right?
Yeah. So, Toby, I'll admit, maybe I'm not thinking about the intended audience for this, which might be, because it's from the Tennessean, it might be, Tennessee folks, people from Nashville. Do you think that the podcast does a service to that place and the people from that place?
Yeah. I mean, I think, a strength is like his creating a sense of place and what, and you get a sense of Printer's Alley. I thought that stuff was interesting in that it's sort of this place where it's like this kind of seedy, it's not really the underbelly of Nashville, but it's like definitely like kind of this seedy place, but where all these like famous and wealthy and, people with a lot of social prestige are showing up and rubbing elbows, particularly with Skull, but with other people as well. So it's like this weird kind of spot at which people from different layers of society all end up in the same room. So there's stories about all kinds of people, but like Elvis and various country music stars. But then like when Skull is actually killed, they're like, well, it might be this homeless guy. So it kind of shows like, the range of people who he kind of runs across. Like, I don't like country music, but I thought that part of it was kind of interesting. And I think he's got like a good nose for telling details that make it easy to kind of visualize. Like the whole like Hee Haw overalls, it's just fucking hilarious. And the idea that you'd have like all this money in your little bib pocket of your Hee Haw overalls is like just a great detail. But again, at the same time, I kind of felt like during a single episode, you'd have a whole bunch of different kind of things going on. So when the thing was over, it was like, okay, what was the thesis statement of this episode or whatever? Like, it didn't seem like there was necessarily like a thematic cohesion or whatever to each episode. It was kind of like a whole bunch of stuff. And whether you did it 16 half-hour episodes where you could kind of tighten up like what you were trying to get across, might have done it. I don't know. But the frustrating thing for me was there's a lot of stuff that I really liked, but then the way it was kind of presented made it so that it was kind of hard to access consistently as a listener.
Yeah. The turning point for me was when Tanya Tucker was on. I was like, oh, for God's sakes. Oh, man. I mean, I know it's interesting.
Wasn't she at his bedside when he died?
Sure,
right?
that's interesting and all, but like...
Send him to the chair!
They need to get those guys, and they just need to send them right to old Sparky, get him going again. They don't need to go through any court costs or anything. Just send him right to the chair,
There's great pictures of Tanya Tucker at like the release party with Keith, like hanging out. And
I know. And it feels very much like a love letter to like all these things that also, but don't serve the story, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And there's just a lot.
You don't have to walk around with a whole bunch of cash in your overall bibs to support us at Patreon.
You don't?
No, we don't take cash, actually.
Oh.
But if you...
what about people who wear overalls? Do we take those people?
We like people in overalls.
Good.
Jumpsuits. Rebecca, you like those zip-up
I love a jumpsuit.
Yeah, exactly. Cut-off shorts, Daisy Dukes.
I love those too.
Do you have any overalls, Kevin?
I do not have overalls.
I really want a pair of overalls.
But like when we're talking about it, it was kind of like, like wouldn't that be helpful? Like, when you're in the garden or, I want to wear like... the Carhartt ones are kind of like stylish now, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I had a friend in college, and he had a buddy who I think went to like Yale or something, but he showed up and he was wearing overalls, and he wore overalls the entire weekend he was with us.
That was a big girl thing in the 90s. You undo one strap.
Yeah.
Flannel
yeah.
shirt
I don't have overalls, but I do have a corncob pipe and a missing tooth.
Yeah,
so I'm all set for
straw
Hee Haw.
hat I've seen many times.
Yeah, with the one Daisy hanging out of it. Yeah. Try to remember the show. Hey, if you join us at Patreon, it's patreon.com/partners in crime media. You can get all sorts of exclusive content, including the Crime Writers on After Show, Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club podcast, Married with Podcast, our advice podcast, and our new podcast, Something's Off with Rebecca Lavoie and Mel Barrett.
Yeah.
You also can get, if you're at the Bricker scale, Leave It to Bricker, Laura's exclusive podcast where she solves mysteries, or at least mysteries to her, in her quaint AF town of Exeter, New Hampshire. Also, if you are a deep diver, you get all that, and you get to also watch Toby record his discussions with his guests. The next episode coming out is their discussion of the book, The Art Thief. Now, other ways you can support us is helping us out by going to our Amazon storefront. All you got to do is hop in, take a look around, do the rest of your shopping. That actually helps us out a whole lot more than you'd know. But you can check out even more of our favorite things. Now, Rebecca, what are this week's Amazon recommendations?
I'm going to recommend my favorite shampoo and conditioner. Kevin, smell my hair.
Wow, it smells great.
It smells floral, right? It's Shabooey. Ultra hydrating shampoo and moisture-rich color protection.
Shabooey?
Shabooey shampoo and conditioner. And I just discovered you can get the big old bottles on Amazon.
Big bottle of Shabooey.
Shabooey. Shabooey.
Toby also buys Shabooey for his hair. You're not going to be able to get that in Spain.
That's why everybody talks about how nice his hair is.
My hair is really nice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But Toby also has great things inspired by your purchases. So, Toby, what are your listener-inspired Toby Ball's deep cut recommendations?
Okay, first of all, none of these deep cuts are actual recommendations. I have no legal responsibility for what anybody does with these and what the actual outcomes of them are. That being said, the first thing is a bow and arrow set for kids. 2-pack LED light-up archery set with 20 suction cup arrows. Indoor and outdoor toy for boys, girls age 4 to 8, space 8 to 12 with standee, whatever that is.
Nice.
I think it's a target.
A standing target, probably. Yeah, not your little sister, but maybe that too. Okay, here's another one in the sort of I'm a little confused. Pet dog bathrobe hooded towel, high absorbent, quick drying robe for large dogs and cats. Soft plush pajamas for bathing in warmth. So you can have both your St. Bernard and a cat can both use this kind of...
Apparently.
Yeah.
They come in different sizes?
It either just doesn't cover a lot of the St. Bernard or way too much of your cat.
Yeah. You could put the entire litter in there.
Swaddle the cat.
Cats don't really like water, so you got to wrap that cat up tight.
Well, it's highly absorbent and quick drying.
Yeah, sometimes you just see a cat taking a bath like online and they seem to love it. And I'm like, what the fuck happened to that cat?
I mean, cats, like humans, have their own kinks.
Yeah.
And
do you like getting scratched? That's how you get scratched.
I do not like getting scratched. Remember to shop us first when you go to Amazon. Go to amazon.com/shop/Crime Writers On. Bookmark that page. We earn commissions on qualified purchases.
Don't shop us first. Shop us always. Just use us as your Amazon page. Do it. Kevin, before we end the business section, do we have any Patreon patron saints of the week?
Our Patreon patron saints are Jess Haddon and Natalie DeGrassi. Bless you.
Jess and Natalie, I hope you enjoy how deep Kevin made his voice and sonorous just so he could say your names. Thank you so much for supporting us on Patreon. Thanks to everybody who supports us on Patreon, especially Jess and Natalie this week.
Jess and Natalie.
Kevin, does thus end our business section?
Thus ends the business section.
Let's fade that music out. Moving on. So, Kevin,
yes.
Looking at your notes, I see you really want to sink your teeth into this, right?
Yeah, just like I want to sink my teeth into HelloFresh.
Oh!
By the way, this isn't the HelloFresh you remember. HelloFresh is now bigger, healthier, and tastier.
Ooh.
So last time I made my order from HelloFresh, I found out that it doubled its menu to 100 options each week. And they still have stuff that sometimes you really don't have a lot of time, so you want something fast. But I'm digging their new premium picks.
Nice.
We both said, really sang the last order we had was the butter-basted steak.
So good.
And scallion gremolata.
So good.
And one of the things that really made this stand out is in addition to basting the steak and then adding this spicy maple syrup glaze to it, they had me whip ricotta cheese.
Yeah?
And it showed me how to sort of spread it on the plate and then put the roasted vegetables in it. So not only did everything taste great, it looked great too.
Ooh. The best way to cook just got better. Go to HelloFresh.com/CWO10FM.
CWO10FM.
To get 10 free meals.
That's the FM free meals.
Plus free breakfast for life.
I like breakfast.
1 per box with active subscription. Free meals applied as discount on first box. New subscribers only, varies by plan. That's HelloFresh.com/CWO10FM.
CWO10FM.
To get 10 free meals plus free breakfast for life. Kevin?
Yes.
Who is the next sponsor for this show?
Oh, we're brought to you by our friends at Rula.
Rula?
Yeah, telehealth has made mental health care accessible for millions of people, but finding a suitable therapist, scheduling appointments, and expensive out-of-pocket costs can still feel like a huge barrier. Thankfully, Rula has you covered. Now, this is, a special time of the year for some folks, but other times it brings up sadness and other feelings of conflict,
dread,
and happiness too. Candy canes, but it's not always candy canes. And sometimes you really want to find someone that you can talk that out with. And while sometimes it might be your sister, she might be the problem at the dinner table. That wouldn't work. So let Rula help you out. Rula partners with a network of over 15,000 therapists and psychiatrists, enabling you to find the right therapist for your needs and preferences. And get this, the average copay is as little as $15 a session. So simply answer a few questions and get started as soon as the next day.
Thousands have already trusted Rula to support them on their journey toward improved mental health and overall well-being. Head over to Rula.com/CWO to get started today. After you sign up and they ask where you heard about them, please tell them our show sent you. Go to RULA.com/CWO and take the first step toward better mental health today. You deserve quality care from someone who cares. Kevin.
Yes.
Who's the next sponsor for Crime Writers?
Oh, we're brought to you by our friends at Quince.
Yes!
Yeah, as the air turns crisp and the holidays draw near, comfort becomes the best gift of all.
Yep.
Quince delivers layers that last, sweaters, outerwear, and everyday essentials that feel luxurious, look timeless, and make holiday dressing and gifting effortless. Quince makes for great gifts, but Rebecca likes to buy Quince for herself.
Sure do.
Tell us about, are you going to talk about that brown leather jacket that you got?
Yes.
Yeah, it goes with everything?
Yes, I got the little brown moto jacket. It is in cognac. I love this jacket so much. I thought about buying it for a long time. I resisted for some stupid reason. Kevin, I got that jacket a couple weeks ago. How many times have I worn it?
You've worn it like every day.
Almost
you find
every day.
Right, because you put it over a very fancy dress. You put it over jeans.
Yes.
It really does go with everything.
It goes with everything.
But you know what doesn't go with everything? At least you thought? Your original purchase. You got a different leather jacket.
That's right.
You didn't care for the color, and it was so easy to send back to Quince.
So easy. They make it so easy to do returns and exchanges. I love Quince so much. I buy like a good portion of my clothing there.
So step into the holiday season with layers made to feel good, look polished, and last from Quince. Perfect for gifting or keeping for yourself.
Just go to quince.com/crime for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too.
Bonjour, hi!
That's QUINCE.com/crime to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/crime.
Crime!
So Kevin, I feel like I should talk about the elephant in the room.
Okay.
So I did not love the production of season 1 of this podcast. I thought that there was inconsistency with mic quality and so forth. And, but for what it was, I was like, I generally liked it, but I had issues with production quality. I have a lot of issues with the production quality on this season. And that surprised me because usually the learning curve kind of goes the other way, right? And second season of a show, especially a show made by like a newspaper, will sound better generally than the first season. What do you think?
Yeah, I also think there was a big drop-off in the production quality, both just the tech side and maybe the editing decisions and the sort of the artistic decisions here. I went back and listened to season 1 because I want to say
all of it.
No, not all of it. I went back and listened to an episode and kind of bounced around just to make sure that I was like, am I remembering this wrong? Because I know this ended up, I remember Toby had this on his top 10 list. I think we were all thumbs up on that. We agree that season 1 was very good. You're right. What I recall from that is that it sounded like Keith had been using 2 different microphones. At one point, he had a very nice professional microphone. It rounded out the voice. It made it very professional sounding, very, very, like it's very sonorous, right? But then there was also passages where it sounded like he was in an undampened room and a little echoey and perhaps, I don't want to say like on a voice memo thing, but certainly using equipment that wasn't professional grade. And there was a difference there. However, I will say that as far as the way it was set up, it certainly seemed like the people that they interviewed were properly mic'd. Good.
The field tape was good.
The field tape was good.
Yeah.
The use of the music that they had was good. It was balanced, and that throughout some of the narration, you would have musical breaks, and you would have music that accentuated different things and achieved an effect. Right? It wasn't This American Life, but that the thought was there, right? So that it moved along and was pleasant to listen to. And I think that the episodes might have been like 45 minutes. I forget, but the length here. And I think here, like, we took a really big step back here because, again, it just sounds like it was that second microphone where I'm like, immediately, I'm like, why does this sound so much like a
student podcast? In the mic quality.
It sounded like we were on a speakerphone or something here like that. And then, like we said, there's these really long passages. And certainly, we talked about that maybe a heavier hand with the script editing would have pulled some of this down. But what ends up happening is that because you have these long, long passages with Keith talking and no other elements to help him out, no second voice, no interstitial music to accentuate stuff, and not going to the field tape nearly as often, it ends up really giving that audiobook feel, especially the way it's written, and it doesn't feel like a podcast. And like you said, it was strange because it was so much more well-produced on the sound side from season 1. I don't know why it's this step backwards, because it's certainly they put a lot of time into the script. It just feels like they didn't either put the right amount of thought or the right amount of artistry in the soundscape, which is not an insignificant aspect to a podcast.
So, Laura, what do we think about the case itself? Because I will be honest, I can't remember much about the case after listening to this podcast because there was so much else there. But there was a case at the center of it. There was a murder with some suspects and some scene detail and some lack of strong investigation. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I actually went and read the articles in the Tennessean to learn about the case because I felt like I was better able to digest it because I was curious about the case. I mean, the thing that sticks with you immediately is the way that he was like slashed from ear to ear. And somebody says, oh, it may have been a liquor bottle. I think that liquor bottle was like a red herring because they're talking about they didn't find any broken liquor bottles or anything around his body in his club. And then they say, oh, actually, the medical examiner actually ruled that he was killed from a blow to the head, not a knife attack. So, the knife attack was just maybe after the fact for dramatic effect or something. I think the part that did stick with me from the podcast is that you have the prosecutor talking about how they didn't have a very strong case and how there wasn't physical evidence. And the only blood that they found in there was Skull's blood. It wasn't anybody else's DNA that was in there. That I would want up front. The fact that the prosecutor is admitting that they had a shitty case and that he was surprised by the conviction.
And he was saying that he thought it would plea out, so it didn't matter. I'm like, that's not good. In my opinion, that is not good. When you know you have a shitty case, but you're like, oh, but whatever, it's going to plea out. It's like, no.
Yeah.
No, you shouldn't be counting on the plea out because you have a shitty case. You should not be pursuing the case, or you shouldn't be like indicting the person yet, right? Like, why is that hard for people to understand?
Yeah, so they have this shitty case, but I think the other part about this is like, what are the motives? Like, Kevin, you're always good. Like, the motives is usually like love or money or revenge. And so when we hear about the first alternate suspects that they look at, I'm like, none of them seem like anybody that you really would want to latch onto. You have the manager at a Burger King who talks about seeing somebody called Crazy Leon threatening people with a knife. And Crazy Leon didn't actually have a knife. And then another person calls
and it was a different
says,
Leon, too.
I also saw Crazy Leon, but that was not the person. That was a different person who was trying to pawn a knife. And then they're like, oh, there's also this like serial killer thing. And that could have been what was going on here.
But the serial killer was in jail at the time or something, right? It was,
Exactly. Yeah. So he was in jail at the time that this happened. So like, I don't even know why they even considered that guy. And then you have somebody now that has recanted who was like in a mental institution and not necessarily like fit to even serve as a witness, who's like the eyewitness person, who's like...
I don't know about the dramatic reading of all of that, but you have to agree, interviewing a person in a mental hospital and not worried about whether or not this was going to be an appealable...
And that it's credible, that it's not credible.
Okay, so we're presently sitting in the Lincoln, Nebraska in a mental hospital, is that correct?
Yes, we are.
Are you crazy?
No.
Do you have any serious mental problems that are affecting you now where you do not understand the difference between right and wrong? Do you understand? Do you know what you're saying and what you're doing? Is that correct?
Yeah.
I think there was a lot with this case, but a lot of it got lost for me within the details of the Nashville history, where I wanted more information about that case, especially because, you hear about the Innocence Project and how they're working. And I know I've worked with some of the Innocence Project people, and they vet cases before they even agree to take them. So that's what they were talking about here. And that's why they wouldn't confirm that they were even like looking at his case, because they're basically vetting it to see if they have an actual claim of innocence with something that they can actually litigate. I wanted more of that.
Right. What do you think about the case, Toby?
The case has got a lot of the stuff that we've run into before in flawed prosecutions or cases that are difficult to solve, where you have lack of strong or definitive physical evidence. You've got people who are adjacent to the crime who have mental illness or have, they have reasons to maybe not be truthful, maybe faulty memories, maybe intentionally faulty memories. And then you've got cops and a prosecutor who basically want to get a conviction and have this kind of imperfect material to work with. It's so dense with information that it's a little bit hard to pick out the stuff that's important for the actual crime that's going on sometimes. And sort of this tide of information or data or whatever that's coming your way, picking out what's necessary and what's not isn't always super easy.
Yeah, I understand, they try to capture the mystery of the crime, but it really takes forever to get there, right? We hear about the crime scene, and as we're hearing more about how eccentric Skull is, and, we hear a little bit about what happened at the crime scene and what they found, but they don't really get to a sort of a serious examination of the investigation until I think the end of episode 4. And especially as we're going on and on about these other things that, you're kind of sitting there wondering, where's the beef? Why are we here? Now, I do think that one of the better parts, or maybe the best part of the podcast, happens to be with all these interviews they have with the guy who was convicted. That's James, I think his last name is Cavey. They have all this tape with him, and as Keith says, sometimes he's too much.
One thing I've learned about James Cavey, his descriptions are always too much.
Dude, by the time I was 18, I'd nailed everything with a pulse. 18 to 80, blind, crippled, and crazy. I don't really have no hang-ups and no shame about it. I was a help.
So, it has some great stuff there, but again, we have some trouble getting to it.
Yeah. Well, so it doesn't help inside the episodes themselves. There's trouble getting to, so every episode starts with the same sort of similar version of the same soliloquy, right? I'm Keith Sharon. I work for the Tennessean. This season,
I'm joined by...
The same,
yeah.
Yeah, this season I'm joined by veteran reporter Kirsten Fiscus, who was with me as we went through every document, interview, photo, phone call. If you haven't yet listened, yada, yada. It talks about season 1. We're also trying to put the crime in context. We're examining the Skull Schulman murder. We're trying to put the crime in context and time and place. I kept waiting for that promise to be delivered. I got a lot of context, but the crime part, I was like, I'm not a murder-hungry person, but the show's called Murder on Music Row. It's not called Music Row on Music Row. And so I do agree that it took too long to get to some investigative stuff. And then even when I finished, it was so spread apart that I also kind of left the podcast wondering, where are we? Who's in trouble now? What happened?
But I'll say that was one of the better parts of season 1, is that we get these little sort of...
Correct.
Rebecca, you still go on and on about Keith's one mention of Taylor Swift, right? Using
explaining concepts,
right?
Yeah.
And so all these little stories about Garth Brooks and whatnot, we found that really interesting. But I think it was just balanced more between that and the story of Kevin's story, the guy from Cash for did the charts. And so again, I think we're out of balance here. More was more in this season.
Yeah, and you're a huge Paul McCartney fan, and you're even saying that you didn't find.
I was that's interesting. That's where Junior's Farm comes from. Okay. Great.
Let's
move on. And I was like, I've been to Nudie's Honky Tonk, and I didn't. Now I know why they call it that.
Yes.
It's not a nude bar, but all the things are really interesting. But
Laura would wear a nudie suit.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
I liked how the stripper was afraid that because he was a hoarder, that when she was doing Ring of Fire, that she was actually going to catch fire. There was a lot of interesting little tidbits thrown in that Lee Harvey Oswald was shot to death by a strip club owner who knew Skull because
Jack
they
Ruby,
compared notes on which dancers they wanted. So they had this relationship of hey, I would like Rebecca, and you can take Laura.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Or whatever,
It's kind of a shot on me and Kevin.
Yeah.
Yeah, too. We could be exotic dancers.
Yeah.
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 Webster's Dictionary defines an exotic dancer.
As what?
I forget. It was
all right. A person who dances in the nude.
Excellent.
Always so fresh, delicious, and nutritious, Eggland's best eggs fuel the body with 6 times more vitamin D, 10 times more vitamin E, and 25% less saturated fat compared to ordinary eggs. Visit egglandsbest.com to learn more.
I've never felt like this before. It's like you just get me. I feel like my true self with you. Does that sound crazy? And it doesn't hurt that you're gorgeous. Okay, that's it. I'm taking you home with me. I mean, you can't find shoes this good just anywhere. Find a shoe for every you from brands you love, like Birkenstock, Nike, Adidas, and more at your DSW store or dsw.com.
All right, let's do what we do. Let's let our listeners know, should they check out Murder on Music Row Season 2? Laura Bricker, thumbs up or thumbs down for this season of Murder on Music Row?
So I'm going to go thumbs sideways with this. I think that this wasn't necessarily for me because it was very information dense with a lot of history about Nashville. I think that there was a lot of reporting that went into this. I mean, obviously, and I think we heard all of the reporting that went into this. There was a lot of history. There was a lot of interviews. I think for people that are really interested in Nashville and country music and the country music scene and history, they will like this. It's more like listening to an audiobook than a podcast. I'm on the fence, but the reason I'm going thumb sideways is I think there is an audience for this podcast. I don't think I was the audience for this. I wanted more concise information about the murder, and I would like some context as to how that fit into the bigger picture, but I didn't need as much context as where it fit in the bigger picture. So I feel like there could have been some editing decisions made to streamline the murder portion of this so that you came away with a more clear understanding of the murder case, not just an understanding of the history of Nashville. So I am going thumb sideways on this.
Toby Ball, thumbs up or thumbs down for the second season of Murder on Music Row?
Yeah, I think I'm a thumb sideways too. I think I kind of like these things a little more than you guys do. Maybe these sort of deep dive, like for instance, Alabama Astronaut, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So I'm willing to like hang in there with all this stuff and find it pretty interesting. I don't know if we've run into a podcast where I felt like so many things were done well, but then the final product ends up being a more difficult listen than it ought to be in terms of, I think the writing's good. I think the reporting's good. There's a lot of great stories, like Keith as a narrator, all these things. But, you know, it's dense. It is like listening to an audiobook. And it's sort of trying to keep everything straight, trying to keep the sort of crux of the story in mind as you're kind of going on these tangents, I think is more difficult in audio than it is on the written page. So that being said, I also was not listening to it in the ideal circumstances. Like this is the kind of podcast I'd like to listen to on a long drive where I just like get totally immersed in it and there's a lot to think about and stuff like that. Instead, I was doing it while I was like trying to pack boxes full of random crap in my house. So that probably wasn't the best way of listening to it anyway. So it's a long way of saying, I think there's a lot of good stuff. I think there's like just one particularly big kind of fatal flaw to it. So that's why I'm a thumb sideways.
Kevin Flynn.
Yeah, I'm a mild thumbs down on this. So some of the caveats here, last week or the week before when we did season 3 of Bone Valley and host Maggie Freeling reached out to us. We know Maggie, and she said, be honest, be brutal, it's fine. And then Keith reached out, and he said the same thing. He said, be honest, be brutal, be fine. And I think that, so unfortunately, I have to say a mild thumbs down on this. It just didn't have the same quality that season 1 did. It goes on far too long in each episode and digs beyond the point of interest on all of these side things. And it's too bad because I did find each one of them interesting until it went on for too long. It isn't structured right. It doesn't do the best with what it has. I don't know why the sound quality is just so insufficient. There's one interview going on where the guy's computer keeps beeping, and it just seemed like it didn't have a natural feel for the audio medium at all. This is going to be a great book, and I hope he publishes a book on this. I think it's perfectly suited for that. We have to review this for what it is, and it's a podcast, and it doesn't work as a podcast. I really wish someone else had gone through and had a heavier hand in making this sound like a podcast, maybe somebody outside of the Tennessean, somebody from iHeart or whatever. If somebody else could have done that and had been, really brutal with the way you went through the script and the way things were structured, I think this might have been a whole lot better. But in this form, it really isn't. And that's disappointing because I feel like You've got some good journalists here, and this isn't representative of the quality of the work that they could put out. But some things are okay. It's an interesting case. I just wish that we got to some of those things sooner and that these episodes were 20% shorter. So all that being said, I'm a mild thumbs down for season 2 of Murder on Music Row.
All right. I'm a strong thumbs down on this podcast. I love Keith Sharon, and I hated this podcast. And I'm just going to say, I read the Tennessean pieces, and the Tennessean pieces in this podcast, it almost felt to me like there's way too much for the print version, so let's just put it all in the podcast. And that's kind of like the opposite of what you're supposed to do. The print version is where you can do sidebars and asides and photographs and put your data reporting and all that stuff. And the podcast is supposed to be a narrative version of the story that's written for audio that keeps the listener engaged and wanting to listen to the next episode. I listened to episode 1 and I spent 3 days trying to hype myself up to listen to episode 2. It's really a very, very tough listen. And I think about that podcast. I think was it Josh Baker who made a podcast at the same time it was being made into a Frontline documentary. Yeah.
I'm Not a Monster.
Yeah. And I think about that all the time because I think he approached that like these are 2 entirely separate means and media for telling this story. And he did not take the video part and say, okay, now I'm going to do all the stuff I couldn't do there and just throw it all up. He thought of it like this is the movie part and this is the audio part, and they're different products altogether. And they're 4 different people. The story has to be told differently. And I kind of think this really suffers from not thinking about the listener. When you make something, I was in a meeting about this today at an edit at my station, you have to think, who is going to be listening to this? What's their experience going to be? So at one point, Jason Moon was in the room and he said, I think we need to trust the audience to understand that. I don't think we need to point that out. And I was like, no, I trust you to understand it. I trust me to understand it. I don't trust somebody who's coming in listening to this story cold, who didn't listen to every other podcast we made to understand it. Like sometimes you just have to say stuff. It's okay. But then sometimes you have to know when not to say stuff. You have to know when something that's interesting to you is interesting to you because you've been buried in this story for a couple years. So yeah, Keith, I love you. Don't care for this podcast. So for me, it's a strong thumbs down. That's going to do it for us. But before we go, Laura Bricker, do we have a cat of the week this week?
So I know we have a hard time when I do these memorial dogs or cats of the week, but longtime good friend of the podcast, Angela Buster, lost one of her dogs.
I saw
Puddin.
that.
And Angela rescues dogs. She is a wonderful dog parent. I follow all of her dogs on social media. I know how much she loves her dogs. And so I'm glad that dog, Puddin, had a good life with you, Angela.
She's the best. And she really does do right by those dogs. Carries them around in carriers.
Oh, yeah.
Give them little bows on their heads. Give them little tuffets to sit on. She's a great dog mom.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And they go to Starbucks and they get their little puppuccinos and everything.
Yeah, their pup cups.
Yep.
All right, Laura Bricker, obviously folks can email us at crimewriterson@gmail.com or go to our Facebook group to pitch their animals to be cat or pet or animal of the week. But where can folks find you on social media?
You can find me at Laura Bricker on Blue Sky and Instagram.
What about you, Toby? Where can you be found?
I am at TobyBallNH on Blue Sky, at TobyBall603 on Instagram, and the first episode of Rip Current Season 2 is out.
Listen to it.
In your feeds.
What about you, Kevin? Where can you be found?
I'm at Kevin P. Flynn.
You can find me everywhere at Reb Lavoie. And please listen to Something's Off either on our Patreon or watch us on YouTube. You can find us on Facebook. You can find the show on Instagram at Crime Writers On, everywhere. You can get episodes early and ad-free and everything else we make at patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia. Our theme song was composed and performed by Tyler Gibbons, and our editor is the truly terrific Livy Burdett. The EP of this show is Kevin. This show was recorded in Studio C, the closet in our New Hampshire basement, where we also frequently walk around in Hee Haw overalls. On behalf of all the crime writers, thanks so much for listening. We will catch you later.
I heard that now that they meet at the Thirsty Moose in Portsmouth.
Yeah.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah, like once a month.
That is a very romantic place.
Yeah, I don't think they're, banging down there, but they're like meeting each other and like sizing each other up.
Is this for real?
That's
No.
for real. I heard that.
Really?
I heard that.
You
Yeah.
really heard that they hang out at the
Moose?
Thirsty Moose?
Yeah.
Really?
Shut the fuck
I
up.
don't remember where I heard that from, but
You heard it from your own imagination.
It's going to be awesome when some of our listeners show up. They're like, oh, is it swinger night? And they're going to be
And
like,
they're going to
what
find
the
out,
fuck are you
tonight it's
talking
at
about?
Jumpin' Jay's Fish Cafe.
Yeah,
Sorry,
Gotta get across the
move.
street. Except popovers.
Wow, we're really getting the deep cuts of the Portsmouth restaurants in.
Yeah. Well, okay, maybe that's a good outtake.
R.I.P. Portsmouth Brewery, by the way. R.I.P.
Okay.
Before we end the business section, do we have any Patreon patron saints of the week?
Our Patreon patron saints are Jess Hayden and Natalie DeGrasse.
You did it again.
Bless you.
Our Patreon patron saints are, I think it might be Jess Haddon. I don't know. We'll pronounce it both ways.
What did I say?
You said Hayden. I think it's
Haddon.
Haddon.
It's probably Haddon. Should I do the whole thing again? All right. All right. Making me laugh. Our Patreon. Our Patreon. Okay. Our Patreon patron saints are Jess Haddon. Is that what it was? Or Hayden? Haddon and Natalie DeGrasse. Thus ends the business section.
Let's fade that music out. That's so sexy.
Yeah, it kind of is. Did it preheat your oven?
No.
Okay.
Partners in Crime Media.
Always so fresh, delicious, and nutritious, Eggland's Best Eggs fuel the body with 6 times more vitamin D, 10 times more vitamin E, and 25% less saturated fat compared to ordinary eggs. Visit egglandsbest.com to learn more.
DSW, birthplace of the humble brag. Here, the shoes are so good, no one would ever know how little you paid. If you didn't go telling everyone, that is. And with never-ending options for every style, mood, and occasion, all at really great prices, we'll definitely give you something to brag about. So go ahead, stock up on fresh sneakers from your favorite brands, or try those boots you always secretly knew you could pull off. Find the shoes that get you at prices that get your budget at DSW stores or at DSW.com. Let us surprise you.